Welcome back to the channel, folks, where we dive into the wild, wonderful world of men transforming into women in all kinds of fascinating ways. If that's your vibe, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Now let's jump right into today's story.
Chapter 5, Girls' Night New Rules. Brian insisted on cocktails, but Nicole insisted on a shower first. After the whirlwind shopping trip, she needed a moment alone to process and to properly acquaint herself with the body she now inhabited. "Fine, but make it quick," Brian said, checking his watch as they entered his apartment. "Happy hour waits for no woman, not even newly minted ones." "I think I can figure out how a shower works," Nicole replied dryly. "I have been doing it for 28 years. Brian waggled his eyebrows. "Yeah, but trust me, it's different when you've got extracurricular appendages." Nicole rolled her eyes, but as soon as the bathroom door closed behind her, she knew he was right. Everything was different now. The bathroom mirror provided a full-length view of her new self, and she couldn't help but stare. She peeled off the new clothes slowly, watching as each removal revealed more of her transformed body. First the fitted top, sliding over curves that hadn't existed yesterday. Then the jeans, shimmying down hips that swelled dramatically from her tiny waist. Finally, the lacy undergarments that had felt so foreign at first, but now seemed perfectly suited to her new form. She spent 10 minutes just staring at herself in the mirror, marveling and panicking in equal measure. The woman who stared back was undeniably gorgeous, the kind of effortless beauty that turned heads and launched ships, as the saying went. Her hair fell in soft auburn waves past her shoulders, framing a heart-shaped face with high cheekbones and full, pouty lips. Her eyes were large and expressive, framed by lashes so thick they looked almost unreal. But it was her body that truly captivated her attention. Every proportion was exaggerated in the most appealing way. Shoulders delicate and narrow, waist impossibly small, hips flaring dramatically to create a perfect hourglass. Her breasts were full and perky, defying gravity in a way that seemed almost engineered, with pale pink nipples that pebbled in the cool bathroom air. Her skin was flawless, with a luminous quality that seemed to glow from within. "This is insane," she whispered, her voice still startling in its feminine musicality. She turned on the shower, adjusting the temperature before stepping in. The sensation of water hitting her new skin was almost overwhelming, every droplet a tiny explosion of sensation. She gasped as the spray hit her breasts, the sensitivity making her knees weak. Washing her new body became an exploration, a discovery of just how many areas were suddenly extra sensitive. Her fingers slid over curves and valleys that were completely foreign yet undeniably hers now. Her breasts responded to even the lightest touch, sending shivers down her spine. The curve of her waist, the flare of her hips, the softness of her inner thighs, each area had its own distinct sensitivity, its own way of responding to her touch. When her fingers drifted lower, exploring the most fundamental change of all, she blushed at her own touch, laughing softly at the absurdity of it all. This part of her anatomy was completely unfamiliar territory, warm, slick, sensitive in ways that were startling and intense. "Well, that's different," she murmured, quickly moving her hands back to safer territory. The shampoo smelled like coconut and vanilla, filling the steam-filled bathroom with a tropical scent as she massaged it into her scalp. Having long hair was a novel experience. There was so much of it, heavy when wet, silky as she rinsed it clean. Conditioning was another revelation, the slippery product transforming her hair into a cascade of silk that slipped between her fingers like water. After the shower, she wrapped herself in one of Brian's oversized towels, patting her skin dry with a gentleness her male self had never bothered with. Her hair dripped cool water down her back, reminding her of yet another skill she'd need to master: styling. She rummaged through Brian's medicine cabinet and found a hairdryer that must have belonged to his sister. After a few false starts, and nearly singing her scalp, she managed to get her hair mostly dry, the auburn locks fluffing into soft waves that framed her face perfectly. "I could get used to this," she admitted to her reflection, running her fingers through her hair. It fell back into place effortlessly, a commercial-worthy moment that made her laugh. After much deliberation, she wrangled her hair into a messy ponytail, a few tendrils escaping to soften her face. Then she slipped into a pair of skinny jeans that hugged every curve and a cute off-shoulder top Brian had insisted on. The new bra fit perfectly, lifting and shaping in ways that were both distracting and oddly empowering. She studied her reflection one last time, hardly able to recognize herself. The woman who stared back looked confident, put together, ready for a night out. Not at all like someone who'd undergone a complete physical transformation mere hours ago. "Here goes nothing," she murmured and stepped out of the bathroom. Brian, sprawled on the couch scrolling through his phone, looked up as she emerged. His eyes widened, and he gave her a slow, appreciative whistle that should have been obnoxious, but somehow wasn't. "Girl, if you don't marry yourself, someone else will," he declared, standing up and circling her with an appraising eye. "Did you always have this much fashion sense hiding under those hoodies?" Nicole rolled her eyes, but couldn't help the pleased flush that rose to her cheeks. "The saleswoman helped," she admitted. "I still have no idea what I'm doing." "Fake it till you make it," Brian advised, grabbing his keys. "That's the secret to adulthood." Nicole glanced down at the strappy sandals she'd selected, flat, thankfully, as she wasn't ready to attempt heels just yet. "Let's just hope I don't trip in these shoes. I'm still getting used to these legs." Brian grinned, slinging an arm around her shoulders. "Don't worry, if you fall, I'll catch you, or at least record it for TikTok. Either way, I've got your back." "My hero," Nicole deadpanned, but there was genuine affection in her voice. Brian might be incessantly teasing, but he'd stepped up when she needed him most. They headed to a downtown bar, a cozy spot called the Rustic with string lights, crowded tables, and a killer happy hour that Brian swore was legendary. It was early enough that the place wasn't packed, but the music was loud, and the air was thick with laughter and perfume. Nicole felt a flutter of nerves. She was used to blending in, not standing out. As Nick, she'd always been the quiet, unassuming guy in the corner. Now, she felt eyes on her as soon as she walked in. "Is it always like this?" she whispered to Brian as they made their way through the crowd. People staring. Brian glanced around, noting the appreciative looks coming their way. "Only when you look like that," he said with a shrug. "Welcome to life as a hottie." Nicole swallowed, feeling oddly vulnerable. "I don't know if I like it." "Give it time," Brian advised. "The first day is always the weirdest." Brian, ever the social butterfly, led her to a table in the corner and ordered 2 margaritas. "Salt on the rim for both," he told the server, a petite blonde who gave Nicole a friendly once-over. "We're celebrating." "Anniversary?" the server asked with a smile. Brian laughed. "God, no, just her first night out as a..." He caught Nicole's wide-eyed look and smoothly changed course. "As a newly single woman, fresh breakup." The server's expression softened into sympathy. "Been there, first rounds on me, honey, men are trash." She shot Brian a look. "Present company excluded, I hope." "Nope, I'm definitely trash," Brian said cheerfully, "but I'm self-aware trash." Nicole watched the exchange with fascination. Was this how women interacted? This immediate solidarity, this assumption of shared experience? As Nick, she'd never been privy to these exchanges. The margaritas arrived quickly, frosty and gleaming with salt. Brian raised his glass with a flourish. "Cheers to new beginnings," he said, clinking glasses. "And to you, Nicole, the hottest tech chick in the city tonight." Nicole grinned, taking a sip. The tequila hit her fast, sending a warm flush through her cheeks and a pleasant buzz down her spine. Her new body seemed to process alcohol differently, more quickly, more intensely. She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Promise me you'll stop me if I start flirting with the bartender." Brian's gaze flicked to the bar, where a tall, dark-haired man was mixing drinks with practiced efficiency. "Honey, he's already checking you out. If you don't flirt, I will." Nicole followed his gaze and caught the bartender looking in their direction. When their eyes met, he gave her a slow smile that made her stomach flutter in a way that was entirely new. She quickly looked away, flustered by her own reaction. "I didn't mean, I was joking," she protested. Brian smirked, taking another sip of his margarita. "Your body wasn't." Nicole shot him a look, then burst out laughing. "You're incorrigible." "I'm observant," Brian corrected. "And what I observe is that your new packaging comes with some interesting software updates." "That's one way to put it," Nicole agreed. thinking of all the unfamiliar sensations she'd experienced since the transformation. The heightened sensitivity, the flutter in her stomach when someone attractive looked her way, the constant awareness of her own body in space. Before she could respond further, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out of her purse. A small crossbody Brian had insisted was essential, and checked the screen. "Hey Nicole, it's Laura. I heard you're in town, want to join for drinks? I'm at Luna's with some friends." Nicole's heart skipped, a physical lurch in her chest that was so dramatic she almost gasped. She'd forgotten that Brian had texted Laura earlier, telling her that Nick's cousin was visiting from out of town. It had seemed like a reasonable cover story at the time, but now, faced with the reality of seeing Laura while in this body, she felt a surge of panic. She flashed the phone at Brian, her eyes wide. "Laura wants to meet up." Brian leaned in, reading the text, then grinned so widely she thought his face might split. "Well, look at you, already making plans, and with Laura no less. This is getting interesting." Nicole bit her lip, a nervous habit that felt different on her plush new mouth. "Should I say yes? What if I mess up? What if she recognizes me? What if?" Brian cut her off with a gentle squeeze of her arm. "You'll be fine, just be yourself. Or, the hotter, girlier version of yourself. Laura's cool, she'll love you." "That's what I'm afraid of," Nicole muttered, though she wasn't entirely sure what she meant by that. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitating. Then, with a deep breath, she typed, "Would love to, be there in 15. The response came almost immediately. "Perfect, can't wait to meet you. 2 hearts." Nicole stared at the heart emoji, feeling her pulse quicken. This was Laura, her friend Laura, who had no idea she was about to have drinks with Nick in female form. The absurdity of the situation hit her anew, and she let out a slightly hysterical laugh. "Oh God, I'm actually doing this." Brian flagged down the server, flashing his most charming smile. "2 shots of liquid courage, please, then we're off to Luna's." The shots arrived, tequila, with lime and salt, and Nicole downed hers with a grimace. The alcohol burned a warm path down her throat, settling in her stomach with a pleasant glow. She could feel it affecting her more quickly than it would have in her male body, a buzz that softened the edges of her anxiety. "Ready?" Brian asked, standing and offering his hand with exaggerated gallantry. Nicole took it, rising with a grace that surprised her. "As I'll ever be." Luna's lounge was more upscale than the rustic, all-sleek leather booths, ambient lighting, and craft cocktails with names like Midnight Whisper and Siren's Call. It was busier, too, with a line at the bar and every table occupied. The music was low enough for conversation, but loud enough to create a sense of privacy, the bass thrumming through the floor in a way Nicole could feel through her sandals. It was a swirl of color and noise, overwhelming to her heightened senses. She hesitated at the entrance, scanning the room for Laura. Brian placed a reassuring hand on the small of her back, guiding her forward. "Over there," he said, nodding toward a corner booth. Nicole spotted Laura immediately, surrounded by a few work friends she recognized, Amy from marketing, Raj from UX, and David from finance. Laura was laughing at something Amy had said, her head thrown back, dark hair cascading over her shoulders. She wore a black tank top that highlighted her toned arms and a statement necklace that drew the eye to her collarbone. As if sensing Nicole's gaze, Laura looked up. Their eyes met across the room, and Laura's face lit up with recognition. She waved, beckoning them over with an enthusiasm that made Nicole's stomach do another one of those disconcerting flips. "You've got this," Brian murmured, giving her a gentle push forward. Nicole made her way through the crowd, conscious of her body in a way she'd never been before. Her hips swayed naturally, her ponytail bounced against her neck, her breasts moved subtly beneath her top. She felt eyes on her, male and female both, and fought the urge to hunch her shoulders or fade into the background as Nick might have done. "Nicole, you made it!" Laura slid over, making space in the booth. Up close, she was even more striking, her eyes lined with subtle smoky shadow, her lips glossed a soft pink that made them look fuller and more inviting. "I'm so glad Brian brought you." Nicole slid in beside her, suddenly self-conscious of how close they were. Laura smelled amazing, something floral with a hint of vanilla, and her bare arm brushed Nicole's as they settled in. "Hey, Laura, hope I'm not crashing." "Not at all, I was dying to meet Nick's mysterious cousin." Laura's gaze lingered, warm and curious, taking in Nicole's features with an interest that felt almost appraising. Wow, you're even prettier than your photos. Nicole blushed, surprised at how much Laura's compliment meant. The heat rose from her neck to her cheeks in a wave, and she ducked her head slightly, unused to receiving such direct compliments on her appearance. Thanks, you're gorgeous, by the way. The words slipped out before she could censor them, but Laura just smiled, looking pleased. I like you already, she declared, signaling a server. What are you drinking? First rounds on me. Whatever you're having, Nicole said, still flustered. Brian joined them, somehow managing to wedge himself between Amy and Raj. Within minutes, he was charming Laura's friends, spinning some elaborate story about how Nicole was considering relocating to the city. Nicole watched him work the room, wishing she could bottle even half his confidence. Laura leaned in, close enough that Nicole could feel her breath warm against her ear. So, how do you like the city? The proximity sent a shiver down Nicole's spine, a reaction so visceral it momentarily stunned her. What was that? She'd been close to Laura hundreds of times as Nick, and never felt anything like this electric awareness. Nicole sipped her drink, something fruity with vodka, feeling the tequila from earlier loosen her tongue. It's different. I'm still figuring out where I fit. Everything's new. It wasn't a lie, technically. Everything was new in this body, this perspective, this reality where she was a beautiful woman having drinks with friends instead of the awkward guy nursing a beer in the corner. Laura grinned, her dimple appearing in a way that had always fascinated Nick. That's half the fun. You'll have to let me show you around. We could do a girls' night, dancing, cocktails, maybe a little trouble. The invitation hung in the air, loaded with possibilities that made Nicole's pulse quicken. Girls' night, with Laura. The concept was simultaneously terrifying and intriguing. What did women talk about when men weren't around? What secrets did they share? And why did the thought of spending more time with Laura in this new capacity make her feel so? Nicole's heart fluttered, a physical sensation in her chest that was both pleasant and disconcerting. She forced herself to play it cool, channeling Brian's ease. I'd like that. Laura's smile widened, and she clinked her glass against Nicole's. It's a date, then. Before Nicole could process that statement, a man appeared at their table, tall, broad-shouldered, with the confidence of someone who rarely heard the word no. He wore a crisp button-down shirt and an expensive watch, his eyes fixed on Nicole with obvious interest. Hey there, he said, his voice pitched low and intimate. Haven't seen you around before. Can I buy you a drink? Nicole froze, her mind blank. This was completely outside her experience. As Nick, she'd been the one approaching women, awkwardly, sure, but still. Now the tables were turned, and she had no idea how to respond. Laura jumped in with a smirk, sliding an arm protectively around Nicole's shoulders. Sorry, she's taken by me. The guy blinked, then laughed, taking a step back. My bad, you ladies have a good night. He retreated with a wink that suggested he wasn't entirely convinced, but wasn't going to push his luck. Nicole stared at Laura wide-eyed. Thanks for the rescue. Laura grinned wickedly, keeping her arm where it was. Consider it a public service. Guys can be so persistent. She rolled her eyes dramatically. Especially the ones who think an Amex Black Card is a personality trait. Nicole laughed, the tension draining from her shoulders. Does that happen a lot? More than you'd think, Laura said with a sigh. It's like they smell fresh meat. Speaking of which, she looked over at Brian, who was now showing Amy something on his phone, their heads bent together. Is that a thing, you and Brian? What? No, Nicole said quickly, perhaps too quickly. We're just friends. He's not my type. Laura raised an eyebrow, a slow smile spreading across her face. Good to know. Nicole relaxed, realizing she felt protected, not just by Laura, but in a way she'd never felt as Nick. There was a certain solidarity among the women at the table, an unspoken agreement to look out for each other. It was strange and a little intoxicating. The conversation turned to work gossip and weekend plans. Laura filled Nicole in on the office dynamics, speaking freely in a way she never did with Nick. Amy joined in with stories about the disastrous marketing meeting where the CEO had accidentally shared his screen with his personal browser tabs visible. Raj added his own tales of client mishaps and coding disasters. Nicole found herself laughing, trading secrets, and somehow matching Laura's energy beat for beat. She fell into the rhythm of female conversation with surprising ease, as if her new body had come programmed with social skills Nick had always lacked. She caught her own reflection in the mirror behind the bar, hair tousled, eyes bright, lips glossed and smiling. She looked happy. She was happy. "You're nothing like your cousin," Laura observed during a lull, stirring her drink thoughtfully. Nicole tensed, wondering if her cover was blown. "Oh. Nick's great," Laura clarified, "but he's so contained. You're more open, more, I don't know, present. Like you're actually enjoying yourself instead of analyzing everything." Nicole wasn't sure if she should be offended on Nick's behalf or flattered on her own. "He's just shy," she found herself saying, a strange sensation to be defending herself in the third person. "Once you get to know him, he's actually pretty funny." Laura's expression softened, her eyes distant. "I know, that's what makes it so frustrating sometimes. There's this whole person in there, but he keeps everyone at arm's length." She shook herself, as if realizing she'd said too much. "Anyway, enough about your cousin. Tell me more about you." As the night wore on, the drinks kept flowing, and Nicole found herself relaxing into her new role. Laura looped an arm around Nicole's waist, drawing her close as they posed for a selfie. The casual intimacy of women friends, the touching, the compliments, the shared laughter, was a revelation. Nicole felt a surge of electricity at the contact, her new body responding in ways that made her blush. Laura's phone flashed, capturing the moment. Two beautiful women, cheeks flushed, eyes bright, heads tilted together in easy companionship. "Perfect," Laura declared, examining the photo. "We look like we've been friends forever." There was something in her voice, a warmth, a wistfulness that made Nicole look at her more closely. Had Laura always been this openly affectionate? This tactile? This attentive? Or was this how she was with all her female friends, a side of her that Nick had simply never been privy to? Laura caught her looking and smiled, leaning in to whisper in her ear, her breath warm against Nicole's skin. "You're a natural, Nicole. I hope you stick around." Nicole smiled back, heart racing at the proximity. "I think I just might." Across the bar, Brian caught her eye, raising his glass in a silent toast. He gave Nicole a thumbs up, his expression a mixture of amusement and genuine happiness for her. Nicole winked back, feeling, for the first time since this wild transformation began, that maybe she belonged after all. In this strange new body, with these new friends, in this new dynamic, there was a place for her. It wasn't what she'd expected, wasn't what she'd planned, but in this moment, with Laura's arm around her waist and Brian's approving smile from across the room, it felt right.